So we talked a lot about above board emotions. Okay, so what are what are like the below the surface, the deeper ones, and why is it so important that we need to pay attention to the below the surface emotions?
It always, whenever we talk about this, it brings me back to when I got divorced. So I want you to picture I am in this new apartment in this new city slash town. I've just quit my job, sold my house, um, got divorced, left my kids in another city because they're old enough and they're not. And here I am laying on the floor in this empty apartment because I actually don't have enough stuff to put in it. So I have a kitchen table, I have a chair in the corner, I have a bed, and I have a desk.
Mhm.
That's the extent of it. And I have my clothes. And as I lay there, Taria, I am overcome with such sadness. And so I think, and I would say sadness, and my first realization was sadness and loss.
Mhm.
And I was just so sad. And what confused me was I had initiated this whole thing. Asked for the divorce. I led the charge on all the stuff that was going. I quit my job. I did all these things. And I was like, why am I feeling so sad? When I was able to, one, sit with it and talk it through, I wasn't so sadness was there. But below the surface, the first thing I realized I was experiencing is a sense of loss,
Mhm.
right? A sense of loss of my home, a sense of loss of a marriage, a sense of loss of all these things. And as you go a little deeper, I was actually beginning to grieve.
Right, grief.
Uh, Yeah, and people are like, okay, grieving, and I was grieving an idea I had.
Mhm.
I was grieving, and I'm going to use the word fantasy because I think all young girls and young women, when we say I do,
I'm
um,
not gonna say fantasy. I'm gonna use the word ideal.
ideals, okay. It's all that wrapped up into to one. And I was grieving the loss of these things and uncertain if I would have them.
Right.
And 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 it wasn't until I was able to name it that I was able to work through it.
Yeah.
And I think even when we go back to you and I asked you, you know, to go deeper, it was when you began to go deeper that you started talking about being afraid,
Mhm.
feeling out of control. You started talking about it never dawned on you to ask for
Right.
help.
Right.
Um, and as you went deeper, um, you know, we talked about shame, we talked about hiding, like we talked about all these things that were these below the surface emotions. Because I know as I laid on the floor at my place and my divorce, I also had immense shame,
Mhm.
right? As I had in my mind failed.
Right.
So there's all these emotions below the surface. And until we're able to name them and talk through them, I don't truly believe that we get to
Right. To
release them